Yes, I was getting into that intro. What's up, y'all? It's your boy DJ Richie Skye back with another video. And today we're going to be talking about the Real Housewives of Atlanta, the reunion for season 13, part 1. We got to get into that. But before we do that, we're going to be discussing the part 1 to Kandi Speak On It, because I feel like it's important to have a conversation about her speak on it in the context of discussing this episode as well, because she does give us some behind the scenes tea that I did find interesting. She will be releasing a part 2 today, and we'll be discussing that tomorrow. So we're going to get into that. And then we're also going to talk about Kenya Moore. I mean, there's a lot that's going on with Kenya Moore from this particular episode, and we got some interesting reveals. We got the reveal of why exactly Mark Daly is so bent on keeping that good baby Brooklyn off of the show and blurred out. Okay, so we're going to talk about that, and we got to get into a little bit of discussion about, you know, how she responded to the backlash with regards to wearing the Indian headdress on the show for Halloween. So we're going to get into that. But before we do so, listen, make sure you guys chime in the chatterization, okay? Let us know where you guys are watching from. I want to know where your city is at. I want to know what you're doing, okay? I want to know. We got Poconos in the building. We got Louisville, Henrico County, Virginia. We got Indianapolis, the Chi in the building, Roanoke, Virginia, Center Point, Alabama. Cameroon is in the Hisnai. We got Canada up in here, Jefferson City. Philly is back in the building, Peachtree Corners. We got Milwaukee in the building, the D up in the building, Yonkers. Come on, Yonkers. We got Switzerland in the house, Macon, Georgia, Jacksonville, Huntsville, Raleigh, North Carolina. Okay, we got Brooklyn in the house. Belgium is in the building. Barbados is in the building. We got, who else we got? I thought, Europe, the Netherlands in the building. South Africa. Who else? Come on, y'all. All the people up in here. We got you. I see you. I see you. I see you. Listen, let's go ahead and get into the thing, okay? And there's a lot to discuss. Okay, first things first. Chime down in the chatterization if you happen to catch Kandi Burruss' Speak On It that premiered sometime around the episode airing or whatever. Now, if you are part of her texting community, you will know that she actually put the video out last night. I think there was a version of it that was also put out again today. I'm not necessarily sure why there were two versions. It just seemed like there were two versions, but we'll get into that later. Anyway, I'm going to give you guys some of the highlights from her Speak On It in context with this episode. Ooh, who we got a super chat from? We got a super chat from Lenora Seal from Flint, Michigan in the Hisnai. Come on, Lenora. Thank you so much for that super chat, starting the day off early. So in her Speak On It, she reveals that Drew allegedly lied about her Halloween costume from, I guess, maybe a couple of years ago or sometime in the past. Now, this was occurring in the scene where Kenya Moore was being called out about wearing the Indian headdress. You guys remember that, okay? There was a lot of discussion about this, and there was a lot of also a lot of chatter online about this as well. Now, when they addressed this on the show, when Andy addressed Kenya, you know, Porsha and Drew had some things to say, and Kenya was ready for them, okay? Because Kenya also pointed out that Porsha's sister Lauren had worn something similar and that Drew had worn something similar as well. So then you guys may recall that Drew went into a discussion about why she was wearing that Indian headdress costume. And she said that it was because of, and I'm paraphrasing here, she was at a family reunion or something like that in New Orleans, and the whole family was dressed that way, and they were doing it in, I guess, in appreciation or in remembrance of the ancestors or something like that. Okay. Well, in this Speak On It, Kandi spills the tea that she says this is a lie. This is a lie. Okay. She didn't really say lie, the word lie, so much because she was trying not to say it, but she was basically saying that your girl Drew was lying about this. Okay. And she was basically saying that it was for a Halloween costume, yada, yada, yada. So she calls her out on that. Now, when Don Juan asked her about whether or not she had to call out any of Drew's other lies, okay, basically, Kandi alluded to having to call her out multiple times. gatherings. Okay. So apparently we're going to see more of this coming up in the next couple of episodes. I want to shout out Tyron Williams, who sends a super chat, says, I'm tired of Kandi and her facial expressions. Oh, Kandi gives good facial expressions. You got to admit that. So yeah, she did that. Then here was the other interesting thing that I thought was like crazy, well, not really crazy, but it's just interesting because she has to call out production for the amount of scenes that they had to cut. Okay. She reveals that their first all cast didn't really occur until they were about to head to Charleston, South Carolina, which we could all see. And that was in episode 7. So she calls them out for leaving out a lot of scenes on the cutting room floor during this particular season. Now, we have talked about that on this channel as well. And, we've had a lot to say about it all throughout the season, how we have felt like, they had left a lot out, and Kandi is basically confirming this. Now, let me give you an example of what she's talking about. Well, before I do that, we got a super chat from Honey Bella Rich, who says Drew is cringy AF. Ooh, we're going to come back to that word cringy because they talked about that last night too. So hold on to that. And thank you, Honey Bella, for the super chat. We love you. We got another one from Gorgeous Nature, who says, love Drew, but she is pulling an Eva with her lies, storytelling, shaking my head. Now, I mean, that's the issue that people had with Eva when she was on the show. Eva could never remember what she said. She would be a shade assassin and not recall not one single iota of it. Okay. So there you have it with that. Thank you, Gorgeous Nature, for that. We had another super chat come into the building. We got Sir Capricorn, who says, could there have been multiple times, not just the one? And yes, that is the question. Thank you for that super chat. Bethany VIPT says, glad to catch a live, boo. I just had open heart surgery, so I've been catching up now that I'm better. One of my favorite YouTubers. Thank you so much for the love, and we wish you a speedy recovery. We send you love and good energy for your recovery. Okay, thank you, boo. All right. So one of the examples that she uses about the production cutting out, scenes from the show that needed to be shown was the one in which she and Don Juan were recapping what happened at the dungeon party in Charleston, South Carolina. Now, in the scene that we saw, it seemed like Kandi was sort of talking about, Kenya not being a liar. OK, so it seemed to us that she was basically alluding to hearing some noises and implicating Porsha in something going on with the Bolo situation in the room. Okay, so here's the thing. She says in her speak on it that Kenya was actually in the scene with her and Don Juan, and they only cut to the discussion that her and Don Juan had after Kenya left. And in that discussion, they talked about how there was the threat of a lawsuit, particularly against Kenya, for the things that she was saying happened down to the Charleston, South Carolina, betwixt that good Bolo, that good Porsha, and possibly allegedly that good Tanya. So we had heard back then, back in October, that there may be some type of lawsuits in the works. But at the end of the day, nothing ever came to fruition that we know about. So, for Kenya, she was basically like, listen, they're trying to implicate me in a lawsuit. And so Kandi, when they picked up the scene, we hear Kandi saying, well, Kenya's not a liar. And the reason why she was saying that was because if it was going to get down to them trying to sue her, she wasn't going to let somebody sue somebody else over these allegations when, there could potentially be some truth to what Kenya was actually saying. So that was interesting as well. These are things, again, that we needed to see throughout the episode in order for us to make sense of everything. And I feel to a certain degree like maybe the season was rushed in the editing process, because that is the only way that I could understand why any of this, like none of the stuff just made sense. You know what I'm saying? So we didn't really get the full picture. So the next thing she does is she claps back at Wendy Williams for calling her filthy and disgusting. Okay. She says that she doesn't give an F. Okay. And that they aren't talking about all the things that Wendy Williams has allegedly done in her relationships past. And she is very proud of who she is. Her kids are proud of who she is. So at the end of the day, she doesn't care. And honestly, I was like, no, whoa, okay, I was here for it, because I didn't think the way she was going to go with it in that conversation. I didn't think she was really going to kind of clap back at Wendy like that, but she did. I mean, it wasn't nasty or nothing like that. She was very matter of fact about it, but she did, let it be known. I don't care what Wendy thinks at this point. So I thought that was good as well. Now, during the episode, we got to talk about this whole situation with Mark and Kenya. And before we dive into it, because I really felt like we need to address this. And I thought it was really petty. I think it's really just kind of dastardly in my mind. That's how I see it. When Kenya revealed exactly why Mark was handling the situation with baby Brooklyn the way that he was handling it by not wanting her on the show. For a lot of us, and Andy even asked this question, well, was it to protect her? Because that's what I was thinking, like maybe he's just being an overprotective person. But, in the back of my mind, I kind of thought, he's being petty. We got another super chat in the building from Beef Jakey, who says Kandi will always be my favorite for her reactions and always speaking the truth. We love Kandi for her reactions. I mean, Kandi gonna give us some good facial expressions and some good reactions. So thank you for that super chat. Now, here's the conversation, the way that it went down last night. Okay. Kenya says that Mark is fighting for all the wrong things in court. Okay. She said he's fighting for Brooklyn not to be on this show. It's not about custody. It's not about time being spent. And it's not about child support. Okay. So then she kind of was holding in laughter. And when Andy asked her if she saw it as Mark's way of trying to protect Brooklyn, and she basically chuckled. She was like, no, not at all, because it has everything to do with his ego. All of the things that happen with us trigger him are so ego driven. And that is what turns me off, because it's not about the family. It's not about what works for us. It's not about compromise. It's about him. It's about what happens with Mark. Okay. I just find this to be, again, thank you for the super chat from Brandon Gant, who says the editing of this year was awful. I am so mad at the producers. We needed Kandi speak on it to pick up the missing pieces that should have made it into television. Love Kandi's honesty. I have to tell you the truth. This is what you're saying is exactly true. Without the speak on it, without some of the lives that happened on social media from, with the whole Porsha situation, but particularly the speak on it, we wouldn't really even have a really good understanding of exactly what's going on with the show. It just seems to me like a lot of the show that made it so entertaining was the things that was happening offline and after the show, because they really gave us some context to the things that we were missing within the episodes. So I definitely agree with you on that one, Brandon. Thank you for that super chat. All right. So for me, let me just wrap up what I think about the whole situation with Mark. I think it's very petty of him, and it's something that actually could put her job in jeopardy. And let me tell you why. And I think, and some people may think, oh, you're exaggerating with that, but I'm not. Here's the reason, because at the end of the day, you have a person like LaToya or maybe a Sutton from Beverly Hills who initially, because the husband would not sign off on the kids being on the show in both instances, those two ladies were demoted to friends. Okay. And they were new people on the show. So I'm sure that has something to do with it as well. But ultimately, if a person can't show their family, he's not going to show up on camera. They got to blur out his text messages. And because of him, they also have to blur out the baby. It's kind of like you're limiting the potential of her being able to have a naturally occurring storyline that is something of her own, that is her own. It's her child. You know what I'm saying? And because we know that the network tends to like to be able to show the family life, it just creates an awkward dynamic where now it's like, well, if she can't show that, then, could that potentially make her a friend as well? I know that they would never do that, but ultimately it's just not, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like a method to stop her bag. And that's not going to be good for him, because it's not going to be good for the baby, because that's how she's making her money right now. So I don't really like that. I think it's not cool. We got another super chat from T Breezy from H-Town, who says it's something to be said about a person's character to always find the negative in Kenya's claims, although she is often vindicated. Some people are just sad. Stop hating on that girl. Thank you, T Breezy, for that super chat. We love you for that. All right, so let's get into the show itself. We're going to rate the episode in terms of a reunion right now. So we're going to do this from a scale of 1 to 10. So I want to know, on a scale of 1 to 10, what you would rate part 1 of the Atlanta reunion. and I am going to give it an 8. Okay, I'm going to give it an 8. I liked this set. I liked the costuming. I felt like the ladies were very well lit, which you guys know is very important, particularly for, melanated skin. Us Black, we need to be lit well. And I felt like they did a good job of that, because otherwise you don't want to have, a situation where you can't see people properly. You can't really get every detail of how they look, because the people who work on these makeup teams and the hair teams and the styling teams, they do a lot of hard work to make sure that the women are looking their best. And I really think that that was really nice how they did that whole setup, and then had the costumes from the dungeon as well. I'm not giving it, I'm taking away 2 points, mostly because I kind of feel like it ain't giving me everything I needed. You know what I'm saying? And I felt like it went by really quickly. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't feel like we really got into the meat and potatoes of it. Like, when you think back to Potomac, the reunion, and you think about episode 1 and how we ended with that huge moment between Giselle and with Monique and Karen and the binder, it was kind of like a big deal. You know what I'm saying? And I felt like we didn't really have that. And also, too, as per KANDI Speak on It, the moment that LaToya came in, LaToya told us in her video, and then KANDI told us in her Speak on It, that LaToya came in like going berserk on Drew about the stylist or whomever it was that was allegedly sent over to LaToya's room to give her the vitamin C packet. She apparently had went off, and Andy is like, well, this isn't that type of show. That's what KANDI said. Okay, she said that Andy said this ain't that type of show. But ultimately, that actually happened on the show. So it's like, what do you mean this ain't that type of show? I mean, like, if it's real, it's real. You know what I'm saying? If that's how she came out, that's how she came out. So to say this ain't that type of show when you've shown other things, I just kind of felt like that was a little odd to me. But there was another odd little thing that I felt like happened a little bit later on, and we'll discuss that in just a second. But right now, we got a super chat in the house from Lisa Joyous, who says, we've seen this before, some men being insecure of their wives' fame, though they are still there are other issues between them. You said it best. He's being petty. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that super chat. We had another one in the building from Davita Sherman. I love this name. I love your name. KANDI Speak on It is eye-opening. However, if she's holding a grudge against you, you're only getting her biased truth with her gang. I'm not a fan. Ooh, that's an interesting statement as well. I do kind of feel like if KANDI doesn't like you, it's definitely going to be kind of obvious that, she doesn't like you. You know what I'm saying? And I don't fault her for it, because I think when we look at people in general, we also have to look at them through the lens of people being human. Like, nobody's a robot. You know what I'm saying? So we all have to understand that there are going to be inherent biases in the conversation, but you are right. We are going to definitely know if KANDI does not like you. Okay. So let's get into the reunion itself. Now, I told you guys I like the lighting. I told you, to me, going into the reunion, it felt good going into it. But it really hit me that there were only 5 peaches this season. And I feel like for a show like Housewives, as much as it has evolved, you really need a good 6 to 7 solid, like, cast members who are series regulars on the show. As we've seen with Beverly Hills and even with New York at one point in time, it just works better. And with Potomac, it just seems to work better with 6 to 7 cast members. 5 cast members, to me, it doesn't give us enough. And then you're left with, several untold stories. And those untold stories being the Toyas, the Marlos, the Shamias, the Fallons, you know what I'm saying? So, and those stories are untold typically because we don't necessarily get confessionals from these ladies to understand what their thoughts are throughout the season as well. So, and then they're also relegated to several parts of the reunion and not the whole. So that's kind of the thing that disappointed me about this season a little bit. I don't think 5 is the right number of people. Okay. Now, getting into the topics of the reunion, we had the pandemic thickness and how the ladies gained a lot of weight during the pandemic. And then Andy asked, why do the ladies think Kenya's butt is fake? Ultimately, I don't really think anybody really answered that, but we do know that she says that she doesn't care. Okay. Then we get into a discussion about Porsha's relationship with Dennis and Porsha's fight for the Black Lives Matter movement. Here is another bit where we're kind of like, what are we doing, y'all? What are we doing? Obviously, there was some pent up feelings from Kenya about not being invited to Porsha's PSA. Okay. The question is asked, why doesn't Kenya believe in Porsha's work for the Black Lives Matter movement? And Kenya says, because she excluded me from the PSA. However, from my understanding, it seems to me that the PSA happened later in the season, but we don't even really know because obviously they ain't feel it necessary to show us the PSA. And to me, Kenya had already mentioned this PSA online when she was going at it with Porsha and somewhat going at it with Tamika D. Mallory about how she felt like if Porsha was doing this for all people, then she should have included her in the PSA. Okay, so if Kenya felt that way about it and she was already posting about it in social media and she did so before the end of the season, production still had time to insert that footage into the episode to give us some context for some other things that Kenya felt about Porsha, and also to show that work that Porsha was doing with some of those other cast members, because obviously this played a part in some feelings being hurt. Amanda B. Simpson says, I think Candi's production should do it next season. Watching her put that outfit on was really literally taking my breath away. I'm going to tell you guys that Speak On It was absolutely amazing. And I feel like Kandi just is smart in terms of what she knows that people want to see. And she's willing to give it to us. And I think she listens to her audience. And I don't necessarily always know that production is listening to the audience. So thank you for pointing that out. And thank you for the super chat. We appreciate that here. So yeah, we didn't see this PSA. And so the question was, why wasn't Kenya included? So Porsha says, well, while you're speaking from the curb, what have you done for the movement? Okay. And then Porsha also states that she did not include Kenya in that moment because Kenya had already spoken bad and questioned her, her contributions to the movement. So to me, it kind of makes sense. Like, why would I invite you to something if you're talking about the work that I'm doing? So to me, it makes sense. We have another super chat from, I think it's Akello Chick, says LaToya is just immature with her shade shows as such. Furthermore, has no business calling anyone on their fashion sense with her basic fashion over $1,000 an episode earning self. Team, too much, pipe down. I think, what did Drew call her? Petty peachless? They was funny going at it, and we're going to get to that. But thank you for the super chat, boo. We appreciate you. We had another one come in from Antonio Davis, who says, I feel that the editing messed up this season and this reunion. There was so much going on besides Bolo, and we didn't get to see it. Exactly, Antonio. We definitely did. I appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. So moving on, Kenya says to Porsha, don't question my activism. Porsha says, well, don't question mine. The bottom line is, for me, the question I asked is, why would Porsha invite Kenya to her PSA when Kenya has attempted to discredit her work? That was what Porsha asked, okay? In terms of Porsha and Dennis, she says that she's been out on a date that Toya apparently hooked up with her, which I thought was very, very interesting. Not necessarily that she had been on a date, but that Toya was the one who hooked it up, okay? I thought that was odd and interesting. Mariana B says Kenya fell in love with a man who wasn't with her for the right reasons. I really believe Mark was the problem, calculated type of guy. It really comes across like he is a bit of a problem, and I think she's better off without him in her life in that way. So I agree with you on that one. Thank you, Mariana B. We get to Kenya, who apparently won sole custody of Brooklyn. So happy, shout out to her for that. She's still wearing the ring. She filed for divorce, but she's not asking for alimony. Okay. And then it was asked why she was mad at LaToya, but not mad at Kandi for talking about her issues her court issues with Mark when Kandi had already done it, which I thought was interesting because she didn't really seem to get mad at Kandi. She basically said something that she felt like Kandi was talking about it with Don Juan, but LaToya was also there and they were doing it on camera. And she felt like that was okay, but LaToya was talking about it with people who don't like her. But it was interesting to note that the people that don't like her were the ones who were actually defending her to her friend when she was spilling the beans about her business. And, you know, Kenya says, well, you know, I think I'm thankful that they did that. But I just felt like, you know, it was, I don't know. It's just interesting to me because sometimes I feel like, you know, I love Kenya for this show in certain ways. And in certain ways, I feel like she'll go low. I felt like if that had been brought to her by LaToya, then I felt like she would have used it against, you know, LaToya or Porsha or Drew. But I felt like they didn't use it against her, whereas they could have. Like nobody seemed to use like the fact that Mark is mistreating her so badly against her. Nobody did that, which I found very interesting and sort of telling about there seems to be a line that some ladies aren't willing to cross and some ladies are willing to cross. So I just thought it was interesting that that was the case. Andy mentions that Porsha spoke up for Kenya when LaToya spilled the tea on Mark. Kandi and Kenya also began to weigh in on Mark, and they don't like how he's treating her. We learned that Kenya filed for divorce and that Mark was fighting for all the wrong reasons. That's when we got the explanation about baby Brooklyn and about how he just didn't want her on the show just to be petty. The question comes up about why does Drew talk about Kenya's marriage when Ralph was in Tampa doing whatever he was doing? Okay. Now we actually talked about this throughout the season. It did appear as though Drew had a lot to say about Kenya's marriage. And so I guess I have to take that back a little bit because Drew actually had been speaking about Kenya's marriage all throughout the season, now that I think about it. And I actually did wonder that. Like every time she was in a confessional, it was like, she going off about this man. I'm like, girl, you can't do that because your man was in Tampa doing who knows what with who. Okay. And we still don't know. Okay. So then Drew brings up, Shonda Sheree says Porsha was talking about Toya from Married to Met. Oh, okay. It was Toya from Married to Met. Okay. I didn't get that. Okay. Thank you for clearing that up. Where was I? So Drew brings up Kenya calling Drew and Ralph strays when Cynthia introduced them. Cynthia slightly defends Drew a little bit, but not really. And then I felt like Kenya went low after Andy reads Drew's tweet about, Drew's family being under one roof, but kind of referencing or intimating that Kenya's family is not under one roof. And so Kenya basically says that your baby daddy is under the roof of a jail. Okay. And I was like, ooh, and that was a low one. I mean, it was true at one point in time, but it was just kind of low. But the man is out now. So he's trying to make amends and make up for the time not spent with the child. So I don't know. It was just, okay. It was odd to me. Kenya kind of apologizes for that remark or for her remarks for calling Drew a stray. And then we get the subject of Kenya's costume coming up. Now, this is where we got to have a little bit of a discussion. Kenya wearing the Native American headdress. She doubled down that it was part of her heritage. She says that she has aunts who live on reservations in West Virginia. We didn't necessarily get an explanation of maybe what, tribe or anything like that. But Andy then encourages her to explain why it was wrong. And I wrote down, I felt like this was a good teachable moment. And I felt like she owned it. Again, I said that I felt like she needed to be held accountable, at the time. Not really held accountable, I should say. But I felt like it was the right thing to do. And I felt like she did the right thing by speaking up because I felt like it was a learning moment for a lot of people, right? However, I do want to state something that I felt like was a little odd. The thing that I felt like was a little odd was when Andy said that, Bravo had come out and they had made a statement about it, and Kenya had made her own statement as well. Now, I guess, and I saw somebody point this out on social media, and I won't say who pointed it out because I don't necessarily know if the post is still up, but I saw someone point out that Bravo actually just really kind of made a comment on that specific page and post that we talked about it earlier, but it wasn't posted to their main social media, I don't think, or at least on Instagram. It may have been posted on Twitter. At least I didn't see it, okay? But Kenya did, she took her comment under that post and she made it into a post on Instagram and onto Twitter, to really be transparent about, the fact that she felt like she was wrong and that she needed to, this is why she needed to come out and speak on it. And I felt like, again, it was to me the right thing to do, right? But the fact that they continue, listen, here's the thing. I just have to say this, because I saw this being pointed out on social media as well, because a user, Jonathan Chandler, pointed out, and I saw my friend Dame Galley had posted this on her social, and she said, and it said this: someone want to explain to me why Black women are always held to a higher standard. I love Bravo, but it's odd to me that they never released a statement on Kelly Dodd or Ramona Singer's actions, yet they had whole segments dedicated to Kenya's culturally insensitive costume. And I have to say that I do agree with this. I kind of feel like sometimes, on a lot of these shows, the Black women are held to a different standard than some of their, white counterparts. And I got to say that because I feel like it does happen. And so when I saw this post, it really resonated with me because I felt like she stepped up and she owned what she did and she apologized. And she, talked about, what the learning lesson was for her in that moment. But we haven't seen that coming from necessarily people like Kelly Dodd or Ramona Singer on Real Housewives of New York. And it's just odd to me, that it has to be like that. So I did want to acknowledge that. We had a super chat from T-Ness who says, it wasn't much going on this season, so why are there 3 parts to this reunion? I'm just saying. Thank you for that super chat, T-Ness. So, and sorry to derail us with that conversation, but I did have to say that. I just want it to be equitable across the board, that when someone does something ignorant, or if someone does something that they don't know is ignorant or don't realize is ignorant, when they're called out by it, let's call everyone out on the behavior. You know what I'm saying? And not just make a certain section of people accountable. Let's hold everybody accountable. So I had to say that, guys. I apologize for going into that, but I felt like it was important. Okay. We get Porsha's talking about, this was I thought a mistake. I thought this was a mistake. Now, Porsha says that that Kenya always wants understanding, but she's not willing to give it. She asked if Kenya can see how contradictory it is that, she feels like she should be given grace when she apologizes, but she doesn't give other people grace after they've made similar mistakes. And Porsha is basically referencing a joke that Kenya made from this season about something that Porsha said about the Underground Railroad several seasons ago. Okay. So we have that happening. Now, I felt like I understood Porsha's perspective, but I felt like, girl, this is okay. Maybe not right now on this one, because Kenya Moore was ready for her in that moment. And Kenya Moore basically said, well, listen, you posted a photo of your sister with an Indian headdress on. And Drew, you had done the same. You would post it up in a photo with it on as well. So why are you coming after me about this? And I kind of felt like, listen, y'all should have known she was going to be ready for that at some point. I mean, in my mind, I was like, y'all didn't remember those posts? Because now you got to be held accountable for it too. So in my mind, if I was Porsha, if I was Drew in that moment, I would have just sat there, shut up, and not said a word, okay? Because now you have to account for that as well. I mean, it's the truth. It's actually the truth, okay? So then we get to Drew and Ralph. Lord have mercy. Andy says to Ralph, because Ralph is the only husband there at this point. He says, have you been to any good beaches lately? Okay, the shade starts early. They discuss Ralph bridging the gap between Josiah and old daddy. I still hate that term, old daddy. And in that moment, I'm gonna tell you the truth. Well, I'll get to that in a second. They talk about the comparison between that situation and Kandi's situation with Block, right? So then Drew is asked why Kenya retweeted the tweet about the scenes with the son being cringy. Now, I gotta tell y'all the truth. The scenes with the son, to me, were difficult to watch. Okay. And so I get what Kenya was alluding to when she retweeted it. It was hard to watch. I cannot accurately articulate why it was so cringy. Well, I hate, let me not use that word. Okay. I take that word back because that was a trigger word. Okay. I cannot exactly articulate why I felt like it was difficult to watch. It just was, because clearly the son in that moment did not want to be there. And it just felt like they were forcing the interaction, right? So to me, that's what made it hard to watch. Now, Kenya says that it was cringy for her because she felt like Drew was not protecting her child in that moment. Now, I'm not going to judge that because I feel like that's her to judge as a parent, right? But when Kandi stated that she didn't agree with the fact that Kenya had retweeted that, that's when Kenya kind of acquiesced and backed down and apologized. And Kenya always kind of gives the I apologize if you felt that what I did hurt your feelings, okay? No, what we apologize for is our actions, not if you were offended by the action. But Kenya, no, she didn't. She didn't really back down that much until Kandi said something. And Kandi revealed in her speak on it that they had conversations about that offline. We got a super chat from Alice Briscoe, who says, watching Kenya try to reconnect with her mother was cringy. Bridging a relationship is not perfect. And so here we are with the second part of that conversation that I saw a lot of people posting online. You know, in the scene where Kenya was knocking on her mama's door after her Aunt Lori had explicitly told her not to do that, that was hard to watch as well. So I guess the thing is this. If I look at it from the being transparent and this is what's going on the show, then everybody can have cringy situations. Sometimes life is cringy, okay? Sometimes, real life is cringy, but I have to acknowledge the fact that, like Kandi said, they were open to letting the world see that. And that's not an easy thing to do. And maybe that's why it was so difficult to watch. Thank you for the super chat, Alice Briscoe. I think it's a touchy subject. Drew had a very visceral reaction to, what she felt like Kenya was sort of talking about her child. I don't think Kenya was necessarily talking about her child, but I did feel like in that moment when she said that she wasn't protecting Josiah, she was sort of speaking on her as a mother. Okay. We got, I think it's Jesus here with the super chat. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate you. We got another super chat from Jessica G, who says, it was difficult for me because she came in so hot for her first season. Maybe if we got to know her in the second season, we got more into it. Seems like she just dumped all her ish to get secured. And I guess that may be it too. It was just like so much that we had to take in. We were still reeling from the Tampa issue, which was never fully resolved in front of us, at least. So I can see what you're saying. Thank you for that super chat, Jessica. We got another one that came in from Cheryl, who says, when Black women wear costumes of other cultures, they glamorize the outfits, unlike when others wear costumes to represent us, they're always negative. That's an interesting perspective. Thank you for that, Cheryl. Thomas Hughes, we appreciate you. We got another super chat in the building. I want to acknowledge that real quick before we move on. from Allie, who says, I believe it was cringy because the issue with fatherless alone, it's the Black community is a touchy subject. I believe that we have to watch this in public entertainment. Okay. And I think that's maybe it too. You know, it's such a serious topic, such a serious issue. I don't know. It's something about it made me feel uncomfortable. And I applaud her for being open and transparent about it, because I do think that that was her intent for other people to learn how that works. But something about it, and maybe it was because he just didn't seem into it. I don't know. Thank you for that super chat though. So they go back and forth about that. I don't even want to get into that any further. Kenya says, I apologize if I offended you, but you talked about Mark. Porsha says, talking about Mark is not like talking about a child. Touche on that. Andy says to Ralph, who or what was in Tampa for 3 days? Okay. So Ralph says, the beach is my place of refuge. All right. Drew says he printed out all the hotel receipts, the where he was and the dinner receipts and everything like that. And he said it, I guess to show that he checked in alone. Girl, he could have checked in alone and then brought a friend later. The receipt not gonna tell you that. The receipt not gonna tell you if he had a hotel party. No one is gonna say that. It's not gonna say, well, 10 people showed up at 2 a.m. for the house party. It's not gonna say that. It's not gonna say that. So to me, I feel like I love what Kandi said, because Kandi was looking like she ain't believe none of that. Because what he was saying was, Andy says, why run to the strip club instead of taking an Uber? Okay. Because he said he spent a lot of time running. Okay. And then he was alluding to the fact that there are so many strip clubs in Tampa, which I didn't know. Okay. So Kandi says that Andy says that Candy's not buying it. Kandi said it's not for me to buy. It's for her to buy. Okay. I don't know. I just felt like, Drew, listen, if you need to believe that to make the marriage work, I say more power to you. Okay. It sounds funny to me. And I feel bad for her for even having to question where he might have been for those 3 days. I think it was unfair for him to do that to her. I think that now anything that he says is unbelievable to me, because those receipts actually mean nothing. Okay. They mean nothing. Just because he didn't check in with somebody, that doesn't mean that somebody didn't slip in there in the middle of the night. Get out of here. Shamar Iverson says, a problem I have with Drew is that it seems that like whatever small transgression is done, she completely overreacts and makes the outrage seem staged. Thank you, Shamar, for that super chat. I kind of agree with you on that. I mean, her reaction to Kenya was so over the top. I was like, why are you crying? Like, I mean, it's almost like, it was a lot of emotion. So it just kind of felt odd to me. So, that was my thing. Okay. We got another one from Allie who says, I'm just trying to figure out why he changed his whole attitude for the rest of the season. He was mean to her early on in the season. Yes, he was very much like, his attitude was stank in the beginning. But towards the rest of the season, he was the perfect gentleman. It was very interesting. I'm glad you noticed that as well, Allie. Thank you for that super chat. We got another one from Roger Cobb. We thank you for the super chat and for the love. Thank you so much. I think we had another one come in. Let me acknowledge that real quick. From Kelly G, who says, Drew lied about how long it's been since old daddy saw his son. 1 minute it was when he was 2. The next time she said they met last year. Interesting. I didn't pick up on that. I didn't even realize that. What would you do if your husband or your wife went to Tampa for 3 days and you didn't know what they was doing or where they was and where they was staying at? What would you do? Would you take them back? I would have a hard time with that. Another question came in and says, why should Drew be so opinionated about other people's marriages when hers is hanging on by a thread? And Kenya is laughing, and Andy says, Kenya, we changed your name on this question, basically kind of indicating that it was Kenya that wrote that question in. I think that was just a little bit of a joke. Andy says, asked Drew who was being googly-eyed about your husband. And so then Drew looks kind of dead set at Kenya. And Kenya says, I only looked at him, I only did it once or something like that. But the producers show a couple of times where Kenya is alluding to him being attractive or good looking. I don't, let me ask you guys a question. Was it wrong for Kenya to talk about how attractive Ralph was more than once? Was that wrong of her to do? Give me a yes or give me a no. Okay. Now, I think it is probably in poor taste for her, mostly because of the situation with Apollo from years prior to. Like, I wouldn't do it simply because of that, because someone would try to make that association again. India says, personally, I like Drew. I feel like everybody takes up for Kenya, and her husband won't even answer the phone for her, and he wants her money. Girl, bye. I think that most people generally like Drew. I think that we like her, but I think that she makes it so easy to point things out that seem out of character. Something's off there, and I don't know what it is. But I like her. I really like her a lot, actually. Thank you for the super chat, India. We appreciate and love you for that. We got another one from California Cutie who says, it seems like she used the counseling as the reason why he didn't cheat. I don't believe him at all. I would have went ham on him, period. I absolutely 100% agree with that. California Cutie, thank you for that. We got another one come in from Tony Phelps who says, Drew wanted an excuse to come for Kenya about her mother, so she over-exaggerated the post. Talking about Kenya's mother is a read that is overdone. Thank you for that super chat, Tony. We appreciate you. All right. So, yeah, if I was Kenya, I definitely wouldn't comment on Ralph, mostly because I feel like people are automatically going to go back to her and the Apollo situation. And that is exactly what Andy did last night. Okay. So we got that. Now, let's see here. So now we have, they go on a little break. And so Andy goes to see LaToya. We learn in that moment, we got another super chat from We Talk Radio Network. Thank you so much for the love. We appreciate you. We got another one from Honeybee Fly who says, because of Kenya's history with Apollo and Peter, it was in poor taste for her to comment on Ralph's looks over and over. That's how I felt as well. I just felt like what could be read as, I mean, just, it's like now we just know, don't even comment on the husband. Don't even do it. We had a similar situation. It wasn't similar. It was something else that kind of happened very similar in Married to Medicine last night, but we'll talk about that in the next video. So we go to the break. Andy goes to check on LaToya. Now, in that moment, she tells Andy that she had a kidney infection. Okay. Now, before, this was odd. So then LaToya calls Kenya and tells her about Drew's assistant allegedly bursting into her room while she's apparently still getting dressed and tossing her a vitamin C package, okay? And saying courtesy of, Drew Sidor or something like that. Jessica G says, Drew is great for the show, love for a hater, just like Kenya, although let's not talk about the husbands. Okay. I agree, Jessica. I definitely agree. I like her on the show. So LaToya, so we get back from the break. LaToya does come out swinging. She calls Drew SpongeBob as soon as she sits down. Okay. She tells Andy that she had a cold then. And so Andy is like, did you have a cold or do you have a kidney infection? And in my mind, I'm like, sound like a lie. Okay. What's the truth? What is the truth here? What was your actual sickness, LaToya? Was it that you had a cold or a kidney infection? Which one was it? And then she says in the chair, oh, I had all of it. Okay, I had everything. All of it. Whatever it was, I had it. Okay. Regina says, Kenya Toya started when Drew came on the show. Please, I love Drew. Kenya can't keep a man. Thank you for that super chat. Love. So then Drew and LaToya start arguing because LaToya basically says, because of me, you upped your style game. And we get the idea that, we get the reality was that I guess in some way, shape or form, Drew got hooked up with the real No IG Jeremy, who does a lot of styling. And she did step up her game. I think that's classic first season, protocol. That's what happens. You know, you come on your first season, you dressed how you normally dressed, and then you step it up season 2 or halfway through the season, and then you start looking like you should be on TV. Okay, that's basically what happens. So we missed out on a lot of what apparently KANDI said was LaToya going off, going ham, going cursing, this, that, and the third. And they cut that out because obviously KANDI says that's not this type of show. So that's the review for the Real Housewives of Atlanta season 13 reunion part 1. You know, for me, again, I gave it an 8. I felt like the best parts of the show were kind of left to KANDI speak on it. I mean, we did get some new information, particularly the stuff with MARC, but you know, I just don't. I don't know. I was kind of left thinking that it would be interesting to see LaToya as a full-time housewife. But I guess we'll have to wait and see whether that comes to fruition or not. Tom B. Fan 84 says, I don't believe LaToya. Production doesn't strike me to cut their mics, especially at the reunion. So they would have picked up something. Well, it was interesting because, thank you for that super chat. Drew did acknowledge that I guess some stylist or assistant in their camp had actually, you know, they did dismiss that person after they found out that that happened. So it's interesting that the teams also get into the, you know, the drama as well. And we have heard about this before, so it's not new to me, but it's interesting that it played out like this. You know what I'm saying? And I wish we had been able to capture that moment on camera because that would have been good. We got a super chat from Glenda Dodson who says LaToya is a compulsive liar. Her behavior is attention seeking and deflection from her own issues. LaToya is not a good fit for the show. Thank you so much for that super chat. Next week, we'll have Marlo entering the chat. Okay. Marlo coming out with her stunner outfit on. And it's about to get real. I think it's about to get pretty lit next week. So I am excited about next week. So later today, probably in about maybe 30 minutes or so, we're going to get into a discussion about last night's episode of Married to Medicine. And we're going to discuss what happened with that. So grab yourself a snack and hopefully you'll be able to come on back for that chat as well. And again, it'll be in about 30 minutes or so. I just need a little bit of time to grab some water, you know, get refreshed real quick and come back and give it to y'all strong and fun and all that good stuff. And then tomorrow, we're going to actually get into a discussion about KANDI Burruss's Speak on It Part 2, because she is going to do another Speak on It. Well, I guess it's Part 2 to the one that came out today. So we'll be discussing that on tomorrow. Angel White has a super chat who says, don't you think Kenya should sit still and let the right man come to her instead of taking anything just to say she got a man? You know, I think it's difficult because I think that a lot of times as we all get older, as people get older in life in general, and I'm not speaking ill of her age, I'm just talking in general about how as we grow in life, I think that sometimes we begin to think about what would make a good mate. And I think that maybe she felt like on paper, this man was gonna make for a good mate. And maybe he did make for a good Mr. Right then. But clearly he was not Mr. Lifetime because honestly, you know, I've always heard this phrase that says never get married to someone who you would be afraid to get divorced from. And so what I think that means is you have to look at and see how a person moves and how they act. Are they petty? You know, what kind of like, what do they do when you get angry, when they get angry? How do they treat you when they get angry? Because that's going to be very telling of how a potential divorce could go. Like you never enter a marriage where you're thinking you want to, at some point you may get divorced, but you got to also understand how people move in general. So I don't know that she realized how he would really move. I don't know. I don't think she thought that through all the way. Angel White, thank you so much for that super chat. We appreciate you. Now, with that in mind, guys, I'm going to go and grab a drink of some water, and then I will get ready for the next video. Again, hopefully you guys come back. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and commenting and chatting along with me. Y'all know it means a lot to me. I'm actually slightly hungover today, so I made it through. I felt like I did. Yeah, I felt like we got through it. and I didn't miss anything that I wanted to hit. So I appreciate you guys for rocking with me, and I will catch you guys in the next video.